This is a little bit different than what we've been doing because instead of like trying to find the answer, you already know the answer. You already know the last step. Can you put the proof together? Go ahead and pause or stop or rewind as often as possible. Okay, so for any angle theta, if I have cosine of theta and I multiply it by tangent of theta, I should get the exact same result as if I just did sine of the angle theta. So we have to prove that this is always true, right? Verify basically means prove it. Verify the identity. We all start with the left-hand side. We go step by step, one step at a time, showing all step-by-step work. And when we're all done, we should hopefully end up with what we have on the right-hand side. So I need to start out with cosine of theta times tangent of theta. And I got to figure out, well, what one step can I take? What one thing can I do? Is there something that I can think of? Well, trading tangent for 1 over secant probably doesn't help. Ooh, tangent of theta for 1 over cotangent theta? No, that probably doesn't help. Ooh, but there's one on there that does look like it's going to help. What if we take tangent of theta and trade it for sine of theta divided by cosine of theta? What does this do? Sometimes it just helps to see cosine of theta as cosine of theta over 1. Now it might be more obvious that we have a cosine theta in the numerator and a cosine theta in the denominator, and those will cancel. Of course, sine of theta divided by 1 is just sine of theta, which is exactly what we wanted. Quod erat demonstrandum, that which was to be demonstrated. Right? If you want to be a real cool mathematician, you put that little QED after your proof. Again, I better start with the left-hand side. No, I don't know if there's any real substitution that would help me out here. I know cosine of theta is 1 over secant of theta, but I don't want to end up with secant of theta. I need to end up with some form of sine theta, right? Specifically sine squared of theta. So trading cosine for secant is probably not very helpful. You've got a lot of materials in that math toolbox, a lot of algebra, a lot of geometry, a lot of secondary algebra. Of all my tools in my toolbox, what would be most useful here? What if we multiply? Of course, I have to do FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. And the nice thing about this, it looks like inside and outside, right? The positive cosine theta and the negative cosine theta, those two terms cancel. They add up to 0. Well, Can't multiply again. There's nothing to multiply. Do any of my identities help? Hey, the number 1 can be replaced with sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta. So I will make that trade. I will replace the number 1 with sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta. And so I have shown that if I start with 1 plus cosine theta times 1 minus cosine theta, it really is equivalent to sine squared of theta. Quod erat demonstrandum. Well, if I can't think of anything else, it looks like maybe I should add those fractions together. I need a common denominator. I'm also allowed to multiply by 1 and not change the value. Of course, the key is how do I disguise the number 1? Now I have a common denominator. I can add the fractions together. Hey, sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta, I think we've seen that somewhere before. Yep, that's one of the Pythagorean identities. Sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. To make this a little bit more clear what I'm looking at, sometimes it's helpful just to rewrite it this way. 1 over sine of theta times 1 over cosine theta. And of course, the reciprocal of sine of theta is cosecant theta. Reciprocal of cosine theta is secant theta. So there we have it. I see a common factor. I saw that there was a common factor of cosine theta. Cosine theta times cosine squared theta gets me cosine to the 3rd power theta. And then cosine theta times sine squared theta is the same as cosine theta sine squared theta. So I factor out the common factor. Oh, good grief, there it is again. Cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta. That's been popping up a lot in these identities, hasn't it? I can trade that for the number 1. Anything times 1, you just get what you started with. So cosine of theta times the number 1 comes out as the cosine of theta, QED. Here's something to try on your own. You can pause this as long as you need to. And then when you resume, the final slide will just kind of let you know what the assignment for the day is going to be. The worksheet is available in class. The worksheet is also available on Quick Schools. You can submit it on paper or you can submit it electronically.